Hey, Elevate 7-8, how are you? We continue in our series called Take the Next Step. And I want you to think about something. If God was a genie, then the job of the Christian life would be learning how to rub that little lamp just the right way so the genie would pop out and grant your every wish. And that would be the job of the Christian life. If God was a witch, then the job of being a Christian would be learning the incantations, like the exact words to say to cast a spell or have magic things happen, and that would be the job of a Christian if God was a witch. If God was a magician, then the job of the Christian life would be learning the secrets to his tricks so that you could do the same things. Like if you've ever discovered the secret to a magic trick, it's really quite simple, and you go, oh, duh, that's how that's done. But that'd be the job of the Christian life, is figuring out how to perform the same magic that God performs. If God was a police detective who followed you around and spied on you and watched your every move, then the job of the Christian life would be to live your life so carefully that you never ever screwed up, or to learn how to cover your tracks to get away with things, if God was a police detective. And if God was a fortune teller, then the job of the Christian life would be to go to him whenever you were uncertain about the future or some decision or what you ought to do, and ask him to directly tell you the future. But now get this. God is not a genie, and God's not a witch, and God's not a magician, and God's not a police detective, and God's not a fortune teller. As much as we might wish that he was any one of those things, he's not. Sometimes we think, oh, if I just prayed in a certain way, I could get God to do what I want him to do. That's not how God works. Sometimes we think, I want God to tell me exactly the answer to what's going to happen. And if he won't, maybe he doesn't exist, or he's mad at me, but God's not a fortune teller. Sometimes we think, oh, I got to be really careful how I live, because if God catches me doing wrong things, he's going to hate me. But God's not a police detective. God's not a genie. God's not a witch or a magician or a police detective or a fortune teller. What is God? The Bible tells us. In John chapter 4, when Jesus is talking to a woman from Samaria, he says, God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship him in the spirit and in truth. Now there's a lot in that statement. Let me explain what that means. But the bottom line is this. What is God? God is a relational, spiritual being. Okay? God's a relational, spiritual being. Not a fortune teller, a witch, a police detective. No, God is a relational, spiritual being. And so Jesus says, his worshipers must worship him in the spirit and in truth. See, he was telling this Samaritan woman, you guys believe in a God, but you can't put your finger on anything that's true about him, and we should worship God in the same way. That God is mysterious. God is a spirit. We can't put him in a box. We can't just paint a picture of him and say that's all that God is. No, there's mysterious spiritual things about God, and there's things that we won't know about him until we get to heaven. And even when we're in heaven, we will never know everything about God. And so we worship God in spirit, but we also worship him in truth. So we don't just go, well, I don't know, I just can't really know anything about God, I'd just be superstitious about it. No, the Bible is full of great, wonderful answers, and there are things that we can know for sure about God and what he's like and what he wants for you and how he wants you to live your life. That's worshiping God in truth, in addition to spirit. And so when I say God is a spiritual, relational being, that means the job of the Christian life is to relate back to him spiritually. Yeah, to relate back to him spiritually. In other words, God's not just like a character in a book that you read and you close it and go, oh, well, that was thousands of years ago. Thank you very much, but he's dead and gone. God's alive right now in spirit. And God's spirit wants to work in your life, wants to enter your life, change your life, guide your life, direct your life. You say, how does that work? You got to allow him in. And when you allow him in, you're opening up to a relationship with him. And so the job of the Christian life is to continue to relate to God on a spiritual level. I'm going to read you a couple of other verses. From the book of 1 John, also written by John, but this is a letter. He says, "See, this is how great the love that God the Father has lavished on us. We can be called the children of God, and that is what we are." And the beginning of John's gospel, he says, it's a privilege that's granted unto us. He says, "To all who did receive Jesus and those who believed in his name, he gave them the right to become children of God." Children not born like a child will be born of a mother and father, but born of God. Born of God. Now, can I imagine as a father, I've got 2 kids, my kids are twins, they just turned 3 years old. Can I imagine if my kids wanted nothing to do with me? Like, how weird would that be at 3 years old if they just played on their own, they played with other people, but they did not even ask to play with their father? If they didn't speak to me, if they didn't acknowledge me in the home, if they didn't ask me for things, that would be so weird. But maybe that's a picture of God in your life. That God's like in your life or in your world, but he's not in your life, and he's just like there, and you're cool with God. Oh yeah, I like God, I like Jesus. But you're not relating to him, you're not interacting with him. How weird is that, honestly, if you think about it now? Because the job of the Christian life isn't to treat God like a genie, he's not, or a magician or a fortune teller. He's a relational, spiritual being. How can I say it more strongly? God wants to relate to you. And so part of that is in every waking moment that we have, an awareness of the role that God wants to play in your life, the job that he wants to have is to be the commander of your life. But yes, an important thing is to spend time with him, dedicated time with him. And for you, that might just be the next step that you need to take. You go, oh, it's so hard, and I've got school, and I don't want to read one more book. Listen, yes, I get it. We can help you. The Bible is long, and it's complex, and it's complicated. And I talked to adults just today who said, I read things, and I don't understand what it means. So we want to help you. That's a program that we have called Discipleship Experience. DX1, parts 2 and more are coming. DX1, what I want you to do is I want you, with a partner, because that'll help keep you on track, to spend 40 days in a row going through this book, Awesome God. 40 chapters, 40 days, you do 1 chapter a day, and we've got the whole program set up online for you. And the guys who wrote this book were so good to us. They said, you can't buy this book in stores anymore, but go ahead and copy it and distribute copies free of charge. And not only that, you're paired up with a partner, but you're also paired up with a coach, and your coach meets with you once a week to just kind of talk you through, like, how's it going spending time with God, relating to this spiritual being. Hey guys, we're winding down the school year, we're headed into summer. The end of the school year and the beginning of summer is a great time for change and routine. And what if you adopted relating to God, spending time with him as part of your daily routine? You could do that. Because that's the job of the Christian life. And then we take these things that we get from God and it overflows, it spills into every other thing that we do in our life. That's living as a Christian. Awesome God, because God is awesome. Here's how you find out more. You go to our website, northcoastcalvary.org/elevate. And just scroll down the page a little ways and look for the thing called DX1, Discipleship Experience. I challenge you to do this with a partner. 40 days spent through Awesome God, and just see what changes in your life from having a relationship with God. God, not the magician or the fortune teller, but God, the relational, spiritual being. Will you take that next step?